So today we're going to go ahead and swap out an HDMI encoder on a Xbox One X. Typically you're going to see a black screen, or obviously no display at all. So we are going to locate it, which is right above, well, in between the HDMI ports on this specific model. And it is U29 where it's located, as you can see over here. So the first step is prepping. You're going to want your hot air. Depending on the model you have, I use a JVC. I've got mine set to 365 100 due to the size of this board, so it's a larger thermal mass. So you're going to want to apply paste. Give me one moment. Let me locate it. Okay. You're going to want to apply flux. I didn't mean paste. All the way around the chip itself. So this is a surface mounted chip. There isn't on the other side of the board or anything, like there's not pins that go all the way through, so they're not through hole. So this surface mounted. It's got one large pad in the middle, along with a bunch of little pads around the sides. So this is actually a really easy chip to take off and put on. So just go into a circular motion until it's ready to come off. Keep your tweezers on the chip. Once you get some movement, slightly pick up. It does take a couple moments to get it all the way heated due to the large thermal mass in the middle of this chip. Once we get the chip off, I'll show you. As you can see, there's movement. So you're going to want to make sure that it's completely loose. So you see that pad right in the middle? That is ground, which is going to be your largest thermal mass, which will absorb a lot more heat than typical contacts. The first step that you're going to want to take is you're going to want to apply leaded solder to reduce the amount of heat that you got to apply. Once we're done with that, we will go ahead and use solder wick to clean the pads and then apply new solder to it. Once again, you're going to want to use soldering flux. Once you get that put on, you're going to want to wick it off. What I normally do is when the solder wick gets full, I cut it off with snips and apply the fresh braid to it again to get it nice and clean. If you ever get your braid stuck to any contact on the board, no matter what you're working on, never pull up on it. You're just going to apply some flux and some more heat, and that will get you going good. Alright, so our contacts are nice and clean. It's time to apply solder. So you really don't need much solder in the middle contact. So this is about all I'm going to use. Reason being is once the chip has nice and flush, it's going to push that solder and apply it everywhere. So in order to make sure that this is everything's soldered properly, it's clean, all that good stuff, let's apply some more flux and go over that one more time with the iron. Go ahead and clean off my tip first. So what we're going to do now, since we've got the solder applied to the contacts, is we are going to apply the chip. Keep in mind that the chip doesn't just sit anywhere on there. There is an orientation to how the chip should set. I'll show you an easy way of actually locating that. So looking at this is going to be considered A1, which is going to be your first and main contact. If you see this dot right here, that's your orientation. That's where your A1 should be. So if you look on top of your chip, it's going to have a small dot that should align right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this chip out and go ahead and get it applied. As you can see, that dot right there that I was telling you about. So the trick to this is, depending on your airflow, you may blow the chip off the board. What we're going to do is we're going to hold the chip with the tweezers until the solder is melted. We are then going to press down on the chip to make sure everything is flush and everything's making contact. And then I will show you what we'll do right after that. So I'm holding the chip. Go ahead and get some hot air on it. So don't let go of the chip until it's actually melted on the bottom. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull it in the direction that it needs to be in. And that was not the direction it needs to be in. So what we do, pick it up, put it back where it needs to go. So you're going to want to center that. Hold down on it. And I will show you the trick for it to be perfectly aligned here in a second. Alright, so you're going to want to get all that extra solder off of it. And what we will do, I'm going to go all the way around, apply solder to these contacts. As you can tell, it's not on straight, which we'll take care of that here in a minute. Alright, so if you apply solder, if it's close enough, that solder contact will actually pull the chip to where it needs to be. And it looks like it needs to go over to the left a little bit, so which we'll fix that here in a minute. So what you want to do is nudge it once it gets nice and perfect. You heat it up and it'll pull where it needs to go. As you can see, it's nice and centered now. We're going to heat all the contacts around that chip real quick, and then we will tilt it just to make sure we have nice and flush contact on all contacts of the chip. So I need something a little smaller. Right now I'm using a micro pencil. Alright. Go ahead and clean this up and see what it looks like here in a second. So it looks like one side is a little bare, which I'm a little anal about. So let's go ahead and just apply a little solder to that side and we should be able to call it a day. And if you ever get it like solder standing up like that right there, that means you need more flux, which we'll apply some real quick. There we go. So everything looks good. Alright, so it's time to clean. So what I'm using to clean is always going to be between 99% rubbing alcohol and acetone. As you can see, acetone will remove any residue that's on the board. Normally alcohol will miss a lot of stuff, so I'll use alcohol for the first round and then do acetone on the rest. That normally does the job pretty well. Alright, so orientation is perfect on that. All contacts look good. Looks like it's centered. So I think we should be good to go. Right after this, I'll test and see if that's the issue. If that's not the issue, we'll make a part 2. Alright, well, thank you for watching. If you could subscribe and like this video, I'd appreciate it. You have a great day.